We have very little information with which to piece together Dido's story. But what we do know is that she was born in 1761, the illegitimate daughter of Captain John Lindsay and Maria Belle, an enslaved African woman on a Spanish ship captured by Lindsay. At some point in her infancy, Dido was sent to live with her father's uncle, Lord Mansfield, Britain's Lord Chief Justice and one of the most powerful men of his day. I'm keen to find out if the portrait can unwrap any secrets of Dido's life. So I'm meeting art historian Vicky Coltman at Scone Palace, Lord Mansfield's birthplace, where the painting now hangs. Now, I've completely fallen in love with this portrait, but I'm very interested to hear you contextualise this for me. How unusual is this for a late 18th century portrait?
Well, in terms of later 18th century British art history, this is a really atypical image, mainly because we have these two women, one with a black complexion, one with a white complexion, presented more or less as social equals. And it's extremely rare to find that on canvas, because what we're dealing with in this period is a long pictorial tradition of black servant portraiture in which they're shown as very much subservient to their female mistresses. And what we see here is an image from that mid-17th century period, which is absolutely typical. We have here this black servant on the right. Also notice how he's looking up towards the female sitter. And really, he's there to say to you and I, the external viewers, direct your gaze to her. So he becomes a kind of interlocutor for her beauty. And so if we then leap forward over 100 years, what we can see immediately is how there's none of that subservience. I think this is an image that speaks of things like sisterhood, companionship.
One theory is that Dido has maybe been dressed in clothes that aren't her own to highlight some kind of exoticism. Mm-hmm. Do you think that could be the case?
So Dido's dress, so what people have made of this, and you're quite right, is they've looked at the turban and they've suggested that her dress may be indebted to the idea of masquerades, which are very popular at this time, which are kind of fancy dress parties. I'm not so sure, but what we can say is that it looks to me to be very shiny and glimmery for a day dress. So I think it's unlikely that she's going to be in the poultry yard or the dairy wearing this dress.
I personally am slightly sceptical of the sort of over-exoticised readings of this portrait. A lot has been made of the turban. The turban was very fashionable headgear at the time, I think, and definitely due to it being a sort of slightly exotic object. But I think that that doesn't necessarily confer on Dido this kind of exotic, objectified status. And that would also fit in with the style of dress from what we can work out from the actual portrait itself. And the fact that it's more dynamic, she's not wearing any kind of panniers or hoops under her skirt in the way that Elizabeth is. I find Dido as a subject much more compelling. She looks like the one who's fun, the one who I want to hang out with, the one that I want to spend time with.
I absolutely agree. I think Dido looks incredibly mischievous, actually. I'd much rather hang out with Dido.